Hello and welcome to today's English lesson. So this is the first of the week. I know you're used to seeing Mr. Messenger here, but it is me for this session today. So our word of the day is stealthy, which is to behave in a cautious and surreptitious manner so as not to be seen or heard. And I wonder if our bird might behave like that in this horrible atmosphere, because we are, as we write, we're going to be the bird today, and we may be quite stealthy and not wanting to alert people to us being there, because I can imagine that some of those mean, hard, ugly people might kick at us as we're pecking at the scraps left on the ground. So our learning today, as a writer, can I create a sense of character to engage my reader? So we're going to start with some punctuation, and the key punctuation that we're going to work on today is using inverted commas and full speech punctuation for dialogue. So I want you to think about whether you can remember the steps to success for writing dialogue, and it's really important that we remember them in the right order. So I've given you a piece of dialogue, a piece of text here which has some dialogue in it, and I want you to think about the order. Okay, so once we've read through it, I'd like you to pause and to write down what you think the steps to success are for writing dialogue successfully, and then on the next slide we go through it step by step in the correct order. And then one night I met an old lady down a dark street. She was frail and alone, an easy victim. Her bag was fat and full, but when I tried to snatch it from her, she held on with the strength of heroes. To and fro we pulled that bag until at last she said, "If you promise to plant them, I'll let go." What did she mean? I didn't know or care. I just wanted the bag. All right, I promise, I said. So you need to look at the dialogue and write a list of what do you need to use, so thinking about punctuation, the order of the punctuation, and any extra steps for when we're writing dialogue. Okay, see if you can write those for me, and then so pause and then press play when you're ready. Okay, hopefully you have a list of steps to success for direct speech. I'm going to go through them in order. If you've got any missing, write them in. If you've got them in the wrong order, then renumber them, or however you want to. You can rewrite them if you want to. It will help you to have this in front of you today, but you can always rewind to this screen if you need to. So steps to success. The first step, new speaker, new line. So when somebody speaks, we should have a new line. Let's just go back and check. So here we can see, I got my cursor there yet. So she said, comma, if you promise to plant them, I'll let go. In fact, I should have had the first one is punctuation before we drop a line. So actually I missed one out. So well done if you got that one, because I didn't, I forgot that. So we should have punctuation before we drop a line. Okay, so I missed that one. Well done if you didn't. So then new speaker, new line. So pretend I've got above that punctuation, then new speaker, new line. Inverted commas, so we start the speech. The first letter of the first word needs to have a capital letter. Brilliant. Then we need what the person said. Now, last week I did a starter for you on direct speech, and we said that before the final inverted commas, we needed to have punctuation, which is usually a comma, an exclamation mark if somebody's shouting it, and a question mark if it's a question. We don't necessarily, we only use a full stop if we don't have anything afterwards. So if we're not saying who spoke afterwards, then we can have a full stop. But if we're saying who spoke at the end of it, we need to have a comma, not a full stop. Then we need inverted commas, and then we need who spoke and how they spoke. Now, obviously in the piece of text I showed you, one of them had who spoke and how they spoke at the beginning, and one had it at the end. So it just depends which end that goes in. And sometimes, really tricky, it goes in the middle. So sometimes those can change order. You can have who spoke first, that's absolutely fine, but your punctuation may need to change then, just be aware of that. So if you want to keep it simple, stick to this order, okay, and have who spoke and how they spoke at the end of it. That is the most simple way of doing it. Okay, so today you are going to become the bird traveling over the city. You need to consider the bird's journey and what it is like being the bird. You'll be thinking about describing what the bird sees in more detail tomorrow, so don't worry too much about that box. You haven't got a huge amount of room and the bird will see a lot of things, so just keep it simple in that box today. because today we're going to think about all of the bird's senses. At the end of today's task, I want it to be clear when I'm looking at your sheet that the narrator, the storyteller, you, are a bird, okay? It needs to be really clear that that's what you are. So this is the sheet that you should have in front of you. If you don't have access to a printer, it's absolutely fine just to either create this table or use these as subheadings on a piece of paper. It really doesn't matter. It's just a table of boxes, so you don't need to use the sheet. In fact, you may find the sheet too small to fit everything into, so don't panic about that at all. Okay, so I'm going to go through each box, and if pause me in between so that you can do your writing and then play to move on to the next one when you're ready. So for some of my boxes, I've got a bronze, silver, gold. For others, I've got a basic and a challenge. So, you know, don't worry too much about that, but it'd be great to see lots of brilliant vocabulary from you. So for the how do I move? So how do I move as a bird? Bronze, I want lots of verbs. I want things like soar, fly. More exciting ones than that, feel free to use a thesaurus to help you. Silver, I'd like you to add adverbs to that. Gold and adverbial phrases. So I want you to tell me where the bird is as this is happening. So for example, bronze example, I saw, very simple. And soar is as in, so a soaring bird is when their wings are out, but they're not flapping. So kind of soaring through the air. They're up high and they're moving through the air. It's not I saw a ship or something like that. It's not about seeing, it's about the way they move. They soar. You can tell by the spelling. Silver, we're adding an adverb, an ly adverb. So this is an adverb of manner, we call this. I soar majestically. I'm a bird, I'm wonderful. I soar majestically. Gold, you're going to tell me where you're soaring. I soar majestically through the air. Okay, if you're doing bronze, I expect to see lots of verbs in there. So really think about the different ways we could talk about flying and soaring, and also how the bird might move on the ground. Birds aren't, they kind of hop, that's a good verb. They maybe waddle a little bit. Some of the fatter pigeons definitely waddle, I think. So think about all those different verbs, so describing the movement of that bird for me. So pause now to do that, and then I'm going to move on to the next box. Okay, hopefully you've done the how I move. We're now moving on to what do I see. So this is the one that we could go on forever and ever and ever. So we'll just keep it simple today. So bronze, expanded noun phrases, silver, relative clauses, gold, brackets for technical information. So very similar to last Wednesday's bronze, silver, gold. So examples, bronze, the skyscrapers. So this is the what I see. The skyscrapers are dirty and tall, okay? I think it might be better to say tall and dirty, actually. So there you go, I'm editing on the spot. So if I was to redo this, I'd write the skyscrapers are tall and dirty. I think that's a better way round. Silver, skyscrapers, comma, which are immense, comma, reach into the sky. So we've got a relative clause there. And I've changed the word tall for immense because it's just more impressive. So we're trying to use better vocabulary. Okay, tall is fine, but it's not great. Okay, we want to engage our reader. Gold, skyscrapers, bracket, some over 200 meters high, bracket, reach into the sky. So that's technical information telling me about the height of the skyscraper. Okay, you might decide to talk about the street, and you might just decide to talk about the length of the street. See if you can get a little bit of numerical information in there, because that's really what brackets are for, a little bit of technical information. If you're struggling with that, feel free to use my sentence, but maybe to change the bit in brackets, so add a different number to it. You might talk about the amount of windows in those skyscrapers. You might give it a different height. See if you can just play with that and get that information for yourself. Okay, so pause before then moving on to the next box. So we've done the first two, so we've done moving, seeing. We're now going to do how do I feel. So we haven't got a bronze, silver, gold for this one. Think of as many things the bird can feel as possible, and then as many ways you can feel it as possible. I was struggling with this one a little bit. I've got wind, okay, the wind, the air. So I've got the wind, and then I've got two ways that myself as the bird would feel this. I feel the wind ruffling my feathers. And the wind pushes me back as I fly through the air. That should have a comma in it. I can see that already. See, another edit on the spot. So back, comma, as I fly through the air. So I want you to think about, see if you can be better than me. not going to be hard today. See if you can think of more things that the bird might feel. In fact, do you remember earlier I mentioned about the people maybe kicking? Maybe I feel the kicks from the boots of people, or I feel the people as I fly through. Maybe I get a little bit close. I feel the grit on the ground as I'm hopping, trying to hop along. As I trip, maybe it makes me fall because I trip over rubbish. So think about the things that I can feel as I move through or over the city. Okay, come up some really good ideas there. So pause and see how many you can do. What do I taste? Ugh. Okay, so our bird is in the city. We've got to be honest, birds do pack things off the ground, and we are a bird, so we're going to do that too. Bronze, we need a noun and an adjective. Silver, relative clause, and gold. I'd like a conjunction for this one, please. I've given you an example. So bronze, disgusting rubbish, really simple. So what can I taste? Disgusting rubbish. As I'm pecking, ugh, yeah, the rubbish is pretty grim, but that's how I'm going to get my crisps. That's how I'm going to get the things I need, because actually the ground below me doesn't have the seeds and the worms and things that I need, because it's not fertile ground, it's just hard city. So I'm eating the rubbish that has come from people. So I can taste disgusting rubbish. Silver, rubbish, comma, which is everywhere, comma, fills my beak. So there's my relative clause. Okay, and gold, as, that's my conjunction. As I peck the pavements, comma, my beak gets full of disgusting rubbish. Okay, so you can play with those sentences, change the word disgusting, you can change the word rubbish. Think of some other things that I might taste. The grit, maybe, the dirt. Okay, so you don't have to go with the word rubbish, you can put lots of different ideas in there and see if you can come up with some sentences that will really help you with your writing next week when we're back in school together. Pause, I'm going to move on. What do I hear? So I want you to think about what we heard in the city landscape. So thinking back to last Thursday's lesson when we were listening to the different sounds in the city, feel free to look back at that work as well if you want to. So we're going to add some direct speech in here because this is what we looked at in our starter today. So what would we overhear as we fly over and through the city? So I've got here, don't push, people shout at each other. Now notice that I've used an exclamation mark in this one because the people are shouting it. Okay, they're shouting it at each other. They're not shouting it as me as a bird. I don't really push people. And then also, as well as having at least one piece of speech, think about the other things I hear. So the sirens, the trains, the cars. Okay, so you need at least one piece of speech. I'd love to see more. Okay, and those of you that want to challenge yourselves, so let's say goal today is to try and have pieces of speech where sometimes the speaker is at the front of it and sometimes it's at the end of it. So this one's where the speaker is at the end of it. Don't push, people shout at each other. The other way of doing this would be people shout at each other, comma, don't push, exclamation mark, inverted commas. Okay, so you can switch the end, you can reorder that sentence. Okay, so that's your gold challenge on that one. What do I smell? Okay, so I would like you to list what you can smell. I've given you an example here of fumes. We're in a city, so you're going to have fumes from all of the vehicles. Challenge, an adjective and a variety of words for smell, because if we keep saying I smell, I smell, I smell, that's going to be really boring. Okay, so my example, the adjective I've got is horrendous and the other word for smell is stench. The horrendous stench of fumes fills my lungs. Okay, so I would like you to think about what other things can our birds smell? How would they describe that smell? Okay, try and make them all quite negative, bad things, because this is the point in the story where it's all quite grey and horrible and gritty and dirty. So what can I smell? And can I use a different word for smell? So I've used stench, can use something different. Feel free to use a thesaurus to help you with that. If you're going online for a thesaurus, make sure that you check with an adult at home first and tell them if you see anything that you're uncomfortable with, as always. Okay, so hopefully you will have a nice full sheet. I think we're there. We are. Fantastic. I look forward to seeing what you come up with and all those sentences. Keep hold of them because you're going to need them when we come back in school.